But then one thing or another happened where the record got leaked, and then the record company wasn't pleased. And I think we were all, and the record company included, were hoping it was going to be something that it ended up not being.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, so if anyone out there hasn't been to a dermatologist lately to get a scan, a body scan, then I highly suggest you do it, especially if you have a potential black dot or something that looks a little bit funky. I just went a couple weeks ago because I had a dark spot on my back, and it turned out I had a melanoma in situ, whatever. And what Google tells me is it means there are cancer cells in the top layer of the skin, the epidermis, but they're in contained area. So all you do is just get it cut out and make sure that it didn't get any deeper. So then I went back and had to get about 2 inches or so removed, or just like the top layer removed from my back. When the procedure took like 15 minutes. So they said I should be fine. They are going to just test it to make sure. So my point is, if you need to go to the dermatologist, need to get a body scan, go do it. Years ago, my dad died of colon cancer, and I had talked about it, and I ended up saving a buddy's life because I'd posted about it on Facebook. He ended up going to get a colonoscopy, and he was a week or so away before the doctor was like, you would have been dead. So hopefully someone out there is listening, has been thinking about this, so just go fucking do it. It's really easy. And yeah, now on to a lighter topic. Tokyo Rose is an indie rock band from New Brunswick, New Jersey. As of 2007, they have released 3 studio albums and a short demo EP, whilst extensively changing their lineup over the 7 years that they were active. Fun fact, they're playing a show at Crossroads in Garwood, New Jersey, with Day 19 and Mike Buscio. That's going to be on Friday, November 29th, starts at 7 o'clock. I think it might have sold out, but I'm not 100% sure, but just go to their Facebook page and they have some advertisements there for it. Huge shout out to John Damiano, who runs Emo Night. I don't know if you guys have been to this. It's an emo karaoke night with a full band behind you, and it's the coolest fucking thing ever. They played down in Raleigh twice already, and I've gone, and it's fucking great. So thanks to him for connecting me to Ryan, who I got on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. Emo Night Karaoke, Day 19, Not Being Vocally Trained, All About Records, Cartel, Portrait Studios, their last record getting leaked with wrong song titles and band name on iTunes, Killbrand Clothing, and a ton more. Lastly, my YouTube channel finally opened up monetization because I've got a certain amount of subscribers and views in the last 365 days. There's a little button there that says thanks if you're listening to this on YouTube and you want to send like a little bit of like a tip or something. I know everyone wants a tip these days, but it does help to keep this thing alive. So it's just a little heart with a $sign in it on below the video. It says thanks. You can click on it and send whatever you want to. That's if you want to do that. You don't have to, but it does help. So thank you in advance. That would be fucking dope. Big shout out to all my Patreon followers for the last 6.5 years. You guys also keep the lights on, and I appreciate all the new followers and the old ones and anyone who has unsubscribed because you had supported me for so long. So big shout out. Thanks so much. And that's all I got to say. So feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Cool, dude. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Dude, I appreciate you. And like, you sound exactly the same as 25 years ago. It's amazing.
That's amazing. Did we meet in Jersey?
Yeah. I mean, I was in Day 19, so we played a bunch of shows together.
Oh, that's totally right. I forgot about that. How do you know John Damiano?
Yeah, John like reached out and he was like, "Hey, have you ever like done a Tokyo Rose reunion?" I'm like, "No, we never thought about it. Everybody's like playing in different bands or like living in different parts of the world." He reached out on Facebook, I think in the summertime. And then, like the whole Emo Night karaoke thing, I was like, oh, that's rad. I actually went to the show last night in Jersey City. Me and Mike Glitta actually went. And it was cool, like they got a cool thing going.
Yeah, I was at the one in Raleigh last night. He got me in to the show, and I text him. He's like, yeah, man, I'm here with Ryan and Mike. They came to the show. I was like, oh, that's fuck. I was like, yeah, I'm talking to him tomorrow. He's like, oh, fuck yeah. He's hooked me up twice down here. He messaged me. So anyone listening, this is Emo Night is like a karaoke with a full band, and it's the coolest goddamn thing, like fucking ever. A buddy of mine, Tom Simon, he grew up in Jersey, and we met when I was in Lanemeyer. He was like one of our first interviews, and we just became friends and would bump into each other through here and there. And then he moved to Raleigh. That's why I moved down here. I hit him up. I was like, "Yo, man, I think I can get you and his wife Tara on at the show." And they showed up, and they were like, "This is fucking amazing." I was like, "I told
Yeah,
you, dude. It's fucking great."
it was great, man. And like they're all pros, like all the musicians on the team. It's pretty cool.
Did you get up and sing?
No, I got there kind of late, and like there was a line out the door to sign up.
What were you saying?
Well, I was with Mike Glitta, so we were like, should we do? We're not gonna do a Census Fail song, but we were thinking about Story of the Year because it was like mostly major bands that they had. Yeah, we could do a Midtown tune.
Do they have that on the list?
No, it wasn't on the list. I was bummed.
Yeah, because I say the one down here, the one online on their Spotify wasn't the same. Last time I put in for Cute Without the E and I didn't get it up. And then last time I did for, the Jimmy Eat World song. Are you listening? What fucking song is that?
Oh yeah, the Bleed American, right?
Yeah, fuck the song though. It was on the EP before they did put on Bleed American.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, is this Sweetness?
Sweetness. Yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like one of those parts where like people listening are like, "It's fucking Sweetness, you fucking idiot."
Yeah, idiots.
It's like what I do. I'm like, "You fucking piece of shit." Well, cool, dude. Well, like I said, I'm glad you're doing this. So yeah, before we start, so you guys have a show coming up, or shows coming up.
Yeah, yeah, because good old John Damiano. He's like he connects the world, man. He knows everybody. He hit me up on Facebook. I'm like the only person that still uses Facebook. We chatted. I was like on vacation with my family, and then he was just like, "Would you ever consider?" I was like, "Yeah." Everybody's doing their own thing, but also, like I'll reach out. Like haven't really talked to those guys in a couple of years, but everybody was down.
So name some of the shows.
So we're doing Crossroads, which is kind of like it's amazing how that's just it's just keeping going with these reunion shows and bringing the old heads out. So Day 19's also on. So Tokyo Road, Day 19. Our friend Mike Buscio, who's kind of like a singer-songwriter, but he used to play in A True Story, I think from Lyndhurst or East Rutherford. We're doing that at Crossroads, and then our buddies in Days Like These and DeSoto Jones and a couple other guys from like June Spirit and like the South Jersey scene are in a new band called Grip on the World. So we're playing Kung Fu Necktie in Philly. And this is all like Black Friday, November the 29th, and then the 30th, the Saturday down in Philly.
When was the last time you got on stage?
Oh, dude. It's crazy. Like it's so far removed from I think the last time I was like on a stage was like a karaoke competition in like '08 or '07. Oh yeah, it must have been '08. Like right as the Tokyo Rose last tour with Bayside ended, we just like got up on stage for a karaoke competition.
I just gotta give you props. Your voice is fucking ridiculous, dude. It's so good.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm not like trying to like kiss your ass or anything. Like I was just like going over your albums, and usually, you listen to a band recording, you're like, oh, okay, they probably had maybe some auto tune or something. And like I was like, nah, he could definitely sing. And then I saw a live video. I was like, just kind of doing some research, saw a live video on YouTube, and I was like, holy shit, dude. I mean, the recording sounds great, but even live, I was like, wow, you sing better. It's like it's cool when someone sings just as good or better live than they do in a recording. So I just really wanted to tell you that.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I think any musician that came through Wayne Firehouse and Skaters World using those PAs, you just kind of like learn how to be able to like hear your voice somehow. I used to put like toilet paper in my ears so that I could hear my voice, because it was those PAs they weren't doing anybody any favors.
No, I think we used to watch Josh from Humble. He'd have, instead of just putting a tiny piece in, you'd see it like sticking out of his ear like 3 inches
Right.
when he would play.
Exactly. I think he's probably who told me to try it.
That's how we found out. So, all right, good point, or a good starting point then. So let's start off with how'd you get involved in the scene?
Yeah, man. It was it's funny, like the guys in Day 19, my best friend Obi Fernandez, since like 7th grade, he was always like, we should play music. We like got in our school talent show, our middle school talent show. We covered Nirvana, I think, and then the next year we covered Green Day, he lived right by this church that started somehow to do shows in the basement called St. Val's. Day 19 was kind of like a punk ska cover band at that time called Wonder Boy, and we did a show with a band called Hybrid, who later would become Pensy Prep, who later would become, the world famous Mike Hem. And it was kind of like from that point on, we were like, okay, we're doing this. We're gonna like start bands, we're gonna join bands, and we're gonna put on shows and go to shows. We were at shows every weekend. I was just thinking about it. Like, I didn't even, I didn't have a license or anything, but like our moms dropped us off, or like we got rides with the older guys in the bands, and just went to every show that we could.
What was some of your first shows? Where'd you go? This is cool because like we would probably there's so many shows that we've been either at just watching or playing together.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, everything that like Ricky put on at the Firehouse, the Wayne Firehouse, Skaters World, like freaking seeing Get Up Kids at Skaters World.
Oh, you were at that show?
Yeah, man, it was insane. Yeah, anytime Humble was playing, anytime Lane Meyer was on the bill, we're like, we got to be there.
That's awesome.
So me and my so Obi and then our other buddy Chaz, who's he's like a writer now in DC, but like we would just like ask our moms to drop us off or get a ride from like a senior or whatever. Yeah, I'm trying to think where else
Like Lyndhurst and
yeah, Lyndhurst,
P-Pack.
American Legion, yeah, like Nutley American Legion, or no, was it Nutley VFW? Like Felix Frump shows. Oh man, anybody on was it like Red Iguana Records? Really trying to see.
Oh my God, Red Iguana. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was like Iguana Records, and then it became Red Iguana Records, and yeah, Felix Frump and frickin' Seffler. That was like Chris's band, right? Before Saves the Day. Any chance we could get, like getting on, like learning how to get the path to, was it like Union Square, and then walk into Urban Plaza, going to shows there. Like, when you're a little bit older. Yeah, seeing Descendants and.
Going into the city was the scariest thing because when we started going
Oh
to
yeah,
show, like you'd go in because you'd hear all these stories, and your first time you're in there, you're like, "What are we gonna get like mugged? What's gonna happen right now?"
exactly.
Did you ever go to Wetlands when it was open?
Oh, I got to go to Wetlands once. I think it was a 7 seconds. It must have been 7 seconds. So my buddy was a little bit older. He was like, actually, my buddy Will Zagoran. He'll probably listen to this. I'll tell him about it. He took me to like my first Warp tour. Got me into All and Descendants. Took me to Urban Plaza. Went down to City Gardens one time, and that was like the farthest we could go down to Trenton.
What town did you grow up in?
I grew up in Essex County. I grew up in Bloomfield, right next to Nutley and Montclair. I was just there the other day. My son's like one of his best friends had a birthday party at the Dave and Buster's at Willowbrook Mall. I remember seeing Josh there at Hot Topic. It's like you go there every weekend to see what band shirts drop.
No, he worked at the Rockaway Mall one.
Was it the Rockaway one?
Yeah.
I think I've seen him at Little Falls or at Willowbrook.
He might have they might have had him like float back and forth or something. I just thought of this right now. I was like, I have to ask about this. Actually, wait, hold on. So let's talk about how Day 19 starts.
Like me and my buddy Obi, like we were, in middle school band. He played trombone, I played saxophone, and we started getting into ska because our buddy Josh Fletcher, back in Jersey, he lived in Vegas for like 10 years. He was like, hey, you wanna start a ska band? He was like really into the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. He had a friend who lived in Glen Ridge who had a full drum set in his parents' living room. So we would like start jamming there. Spinoza Music in Belleville, they had like lessons and stuff. They had flyers for bands seeking musicians. We went to Bloomfield High, so like Jason and Brian Foley, Butthead, went to school there, and Obi used to skate with Butt. Started playing music, and we were like, oh, like I think we're gonna start like a punk ska cover band called Wonder Boy, and we got the flyer for like needing horn players because nobody knows horn players when you play guitar unless you're like in jazz band in school. So his older brother Jay, who Jay Foley, I think he was a senior at the time. Yeah, starting this ska band with Woody, our drummer, dude from Bayonne, and legendary Woody, missing his leg, lost it to cancer as a kid. Phenomenal drummer despite any setback. And we were like, yeah, dude, we want to play. And you guys are they were, like Jay had great tone. and Woody was like all about it, and he had all his Latin influences. So like we thought we could really like pull off a ska thing, but we started doing covers first, which is funny. I think we did like one or two shows. That second show was at St. Val's. I think the rest is kind of history. We started playing the Firehouse, Skaters World. I think Obi started helping put on the shows at Skaters World with a dude named Kenny from Newark.
Was he the one who was putting on all the Skaters World shows?
Kenny was doing most of them, and then Obi got really, involved and, started bringing more ska bands, some of the Moon Ska guys, and Obi got super tight with the Toasters guys. Buck was living in Verona at the time. So, yeah, it was like right place, right time.
Did you guys, no, you didn't do a split with Right Turn Eddie.
No, I think we had talked about it because Pat in Right Turn Eddie also went to Bloomfield. He was, I think, a senior too. Like we all looked up to him, and like a couple of guys in that class, in that high school class, were like totally into music. So Jay was like Jay had played in kind of like a rock band, an original rock band. That was like, oh, dude, you're playing original music? That's so cool. So we always looked up to him. And then when he started the ska thing, they're like, yeah, we could try this. Like, look, we have horns already. Like we're just gonna steal them from the school, and then we'll use them and take them on the road to play shows or whatever.
How long was Day 19 a band? It was only a couple of years, right?
Yeah, I want to say like 97, like maybe mid 96 to 2000 or like late 99.
Did you guys ever tour?
We did a little bit of a tour. We did like some colleges, open for Run DMC at a college gig in Boston. We were on a like tour of like kind of college shows when we hit a patch of ice in our drummer in Woody's like SUV and a trailer attached to it. I think we had like a U-Haul attached to it, and like we jackknifed, and thankfully nobody got hurt. But it scared the crap out of everybody.
I probably heard that. I totally forgot about that. There was like a year where there was a ton of bands just like flipping their vans and shit. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, man, it was insane. Somebody was talking about, I think it was on another podcast, we're talking about when Bayside freaking flipped their van. And Midtown did like the year before or 2 years before that.
Yeah, it was like Bayside, Midtown, Saves the Day.
Yeah.
I forget who else. Yeah, I forgot. I always forget about Bayside, and there was their drummer that they lost, right?
Yeah, it was insane. We met those guys like in Orlando. We played a show with them in Orlando, and then like later that winter, all that stuff went down.
Yeah, that was scary, like hearing that stuff, because it kind of, you're like, okay, we're going on tour, and then I never thought about it. Someone mentioned this in an interview a while back, and they said, you'd wait till the winter to go on tour because that's when all the kids were back in college.
Exactly.
And I never even thought about that. I was like, well, the best time to go is the spring or the summer because it's nice outside. But they're like, yeah, everyone's in school, so there's gonna be more kids at the shows. I was like, that's awesome and also scary at the same time. So I interviewed this guy, Jeremy Weiss. Do you know him?
Doesn't ring a bell, but what band is he in?
Well, he has a photography company with his wife. They've been doing he did like the photos for Saves the Day, Stay What You Are, and a lot of albums. His company is called Day 19.
Oh wow.
And when I interviewed him because he used to work at Small Empire, that skate shop back in the day in Ledgewood.
Yeah.
Or Randolph. And so I was talking about that, and then it led into him doing photography and then living in this house out in California with like Amy Fiddler and fucking Roma from Big Wheel and shit. I was like, so where'd you get the name from? I'm like, did you take it from the ska band? And he's like, no. He goes, and I have to listen to that, but he goes, no. He's like, when we did it, I think he said that one of you guys sent him like a cease and desist or something for like stealing the name or something like that. So I just wanted to bring that up and be like, what was like, just if you remembered that at all.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. I never heard the full story of that. The other guys were a bit older, and they kind of like had to figure out like the legal side. Like I said, we were called Wonder Boy when we were doing the covers, and then when we decided to go with Day 19, I think it was I thought it was a nod to a skate shop, but also the fact that we started like our first show was on May 19th or something like that. It rung a bell. It like resonated. I mean, Jay like took the interstate side, and like we were all trying to play to pay homage to the Garden State scene and like all the Garden State punk signs that were around. It just stuck, so I guess we didn't want to relinquish the name, and I was kind of oblivious to to a lot of stuff back then. I was just the dumb kid that like got in the back of the van or the SUV to the show, and we're here to play, like just have fun.
When you were playing, did you want to become a frontman?
It was never really a thought, but I'd written a bunch of songs that Day 19 started to play, and then there were a couple that were just, they didn't really land with the guys, or they weren't really appropriate with horns, I guess. Getting into more kind of emo and indie stuff, from the Get Up Kids to like Anniversary, and Jimmy, of course, Jimmy is always in there in the mix. It just felt like it was a time to try it. Yeah, I'd met Mike Litta before, and like I don't know if anybody knows this, but Tokyo Rose started like right in '99 when like Day 19 was starting to kind of the horn players all went to college, and it was actually started by Mike Litta, our buddy Matt Riley, who also went to Bloomfield High, and two other guys that were kind of like in around the scene, a dude named Lester and a dude named Sean, and they started playing a couple of songs that like Matt wrote, and I went to see them because I'd become friends with Matt and become friends with Mike through different mutual friends. I told them like, hey, like I'd love to like talk with you guys if you want to like add another guitar player, or if you guys are looking to play some shows. I'm sure like we can get you on some Day 19 bills. And when the other horn players in Day 19 went to college in Boston and in New England, I went to Rutgers, so I like stuck around. So we played some Day 19 shows without any horns. Like I would play second guitar, and this was like towards the very end of Day 19. And so then we'd get Tokyo Rose on the shows, and then Mike, who went on to start Census Fail and a couple of other projects, he was like, you know what, like you have some cool songs. Why don't we try to play those songs? I was like, well, I'd have to join the band, then I wouldn't really be able to play in Day 19. And then Day 19 kind of went on an unspoken hiatus, I guess, like while waiting for the horn players to come back from college. The whole like Milo goes to college hiatus. Yeah, man, it just worked out. Like I really clicked with Mike. We're still friends to this day. Still love Matt. And when Tokyo Rose started playing my songs, I was like, okay, well let me try to sing them. And I think our first show with me in the band was we played at the JCC in West Orange. It was like a battle of bands, and it was us. It was like Outline, Random Task, like a bunch of guys who like were amazing, and like eventually have careers now, like in new bands and new projects. But like met all those guys, and then it just seemed to work well. And then Mike was also going to Rutgers that fall. So then we started, just try to get shows in basements and stuff, and different like Derby Firehouse, M&M Hall, like all the kind of Central Jersey spots. Stingrays, rest in peace.
Wait, where was Stingrays?
It was like the male review club next to Birch Hill. It was like the small stage at Birch Hill, yeah.
Okay. Did you know how to sing before you started?
I was like into music. I was a choir boy in like middle school and high school. So it was never really like a thing until those guys were like, hey, like Mike was like, you have some cool songs and a decent voice, and why don't we try it out? Yeah, it was really kind of from there. I don't know where how it became that like I was the singer, because Matt was also singing and we were playing his songs as well. But I think when Mike and I started going to Rutgers, it kind of Matt was still in high school. He's a couple years younger, and then the two other guys were going to college too. So we all kind of like just stuck together, and the other guys went their separate way.
Did you take voice lessons at all? Because you got like vibrato and you have like a professional sounding voice. I feel like that doesn't just come naturally.
You know what? I chalk it up to just like being a fan of Bon Jovi and like loving every hair metal band that like my older cousins, my cousins who are like 9 and 10 years older, introduced me to Bon Jovi, to Metallica, to Iron Maiden. My one cousin was like a huge Iron Maiden fan. I forget what their fans are called. He was like a huge Maiden head. The vibrato on those guys was sick. So I think I just kind of kind of imitated them unconscious or subconsciously.
Damn, that's crazy, dude. It sounds like you were like trained or you had like a vocal coach. So
Ah, thanks, man. Well, you know what? On that the Promise and Compromise record, we worked with a vocal producer named Mark Rank, and he was like very instrumental in trying to get me to like think about vocal health, like getting me to warm up. Who warms up before a punk rock show, you know? So like I would sit in the van for like 15, 20 minutes before we would go on. He would like make sure that I didn't eat anything before we track. He's like, you can't eat, but then you can have like this hot and sour soup from this Chinese place in North Hollywood. And I was like, okay, let's, whatever you say, Mark. Like you're the producer, you're the vocal coach. And basically, I just adapted all that to my style and having 15 minutes in the van before going on.
oh hell yeah, dude! Like when I took over singing, I got a vocal coach and just learned breathing. So I'd practice like breathing for 15 minutes, and then by the time I went on, it was just my diaphragm was so strong, I'd just be able to belt out those fucking notes.
Yeah. Well, Jim Atkins too. I think I read in an interview that like, he drinks like 2 liters of water throughout the day, room temperature water, so that your voice is fully hydrated. Your vocal cords are fully hydrated before you go on. So it's like, yeah, like you wake up and it's like it's the whole thing now, like the Stanley water bottle, like measuring how much water your intake, and it's like actually learning how to do that because Jimmy World does it. I think that kind of helped too.
I heard years ago, and I tried this technique and it worked. Anthony Green from Cirque
Oh,
Survive,
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whose voice is fucking ridiculous. I heard that he would have this humidifier, but one that goes on your mouth, and he would breathe that in before he went on stage. So I tried it. I mean, I tried it like 15 years ago, and it works like brilliantly.
That's awesome. That's so smart.
Yeah, and it's like and then yeah, I tried it again a couple years ago, and it still works. So just little, I don't know if you little maybe extra thing to throw in there when you're playing these shows. I mean, it really opens up and just keeps it, does its thing.
Yeah, no, I think on the Taking Back Sunday tour, I don't know if it was Adam or if Eddie told me that Adam did this. He would spray this spray called like Entertainer Secret, and it was kind of like this mix of like apple cider and like honey and some other botanicals that would just help like coat your throat so that you wouldn't like burn it out. Because Adam was doing crazy stuff, still does crazy stuff with his voice, and how he can do that for more than a couple of years. He's still doing it.
So okay, how long was it before you guys recorded your first album?
Um, so we kind of started playing my songs and doing the kind of basement shows and stuff in I think maybe early 2000 or late 99 and then early 2000. The summer of 2000, we're like, okay, like we can record. Mike knew a guy, an engineer slash producer in the Poconos in a little town called Toby Hanna. And we went to stay at his house. The house was furnished for, people to stay. And then there was a studio in the basement. And we tracked 4 songs that were already written. I had an acoustic song that we wanted to make it full band, but like it just wasn't ready. So then we tracked it acoustic and single voice. And I was like, it'd be really cool to have a female vocal on this, but we didn't know any singers, like any female singers in Jersey or in the area, other than like the choir singers that we had in high school. So we took the acoustic, like just this rinky-dink Ivan as acoustic, like to the mall, and like we would sit on the bench at the mall for like 3 nights, I think. We would play the song and say like, hey, do you know any singers? We like parked right outside the Hot Topic, or I don't know if it was like a Spencer's or something. We're like, hey, do you know any singers? And eventually somebody came out of one of the shops and they're like, you guys can't play here, but I know a singer and she works at the go-kart place. So there's this go-kart place in East Stroudsburg, PA, like in the Poconos. We, get in the minivan and go over there. And yeah, there's this girl, her name's Katie Pandolfo. She's like, yeah, I'm a singer. The producer that we had worked with, had done some of her demos, and she was she just wrapped her part in a little movie by David Wayne, Michael Ian Black, called Wet Hot American Summer. She was the girl in Wet Hot American Summer singing the Day by Day song from, I can't even remember what musical, Godspeed maybe. So she had just wrapped that, and we were like, hey, so we heard you could sing. And she like gets in the car with us, in the minivan with us, and goes to the studio because she knows the guy because he did some of her demos, and she tracked the female vocal on "I Love You Too," and kind of it just worked out.
It's got to be, hey, we're five guys in a minivan. Would you like to jump in and go do vocals? And she's like, sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess because she knew the guy, and like her dad owns the go-kart place, and they were just like totally. If his name is Richie. I can't remember his last name. Like talking with Glitta last night, he was like, it's like Richie Cage or something. It's like that's definitely not his real name. That's got to be like his '80s like persona, his like stage name. But Richie Cage in Toby Hanna, yeah, like it all lined up. Again, it's like that whole thing of like right place, right time.
Wait, what was her name again?
Katie Pandolfo.
Real quick, if you're looking for an explainer video or someone to do motion graphics for your company, check out my company, drive80.com, and you can email me at mike@drive80.com for more info. That's all I got to say. So now back to the interview. Yeah, I see that. I forgot about this, that you guys put that EP out on All About Records.
Yeah.
I just saw Russ a couple months ago. He was traveling with something. Yeah, how did you guys get hooked up with him?
I think after recording, we were just shopping, burned CDs, handing it to whomever, and I think what was the name of this like the site? There was a site that had like all the venues and like little labels and their contacts, their owners online, but it was like all the way through New England down to I want to say like Richmond, maybe even further south in Virginia. But it was like any label, any venue that would do all ages or that would do, that would put out demos or EPs or 7 inches. And we just like sent it to everybody we could. And Russell was the first one who's like, yeah, guys, like I really dig what you're doing. And he pressed it and did some promo for it. When you're doing it in your mom's basement or whatever, or like on your old like compact desktop, just burning CDs, you're just sending them out to whomever to get as many stamps as you can. And he's the first one that responded like positively, I think.
So, like, right after you guys do this, Mike leaves the band?
So right after we do this, he puts it out. We start doing some more shows, and we're both at Rutgers. And I think he switches his major, and so he's got to like do some core stuff, like core requirement stuff. And so we're like, hey, like, oh, at that point, Matt also was kind of wanting to do different music, and then Chris Polson from Professor Plum, it turns out like he is looking to do something else as well. Professor Plum was kind of not fizzling out, but just kind of like everybody was also going to college because Chris is I think a year older. He's at Drexel, but then I think he takes a couple of classes at Rutgers, and me and Mike start talking. Yeah, we start, he's like, hey, if you're going to do this, like, let me come over and try it out. So we go to Mike's mom's basement in West Orange, and we just start jamming on these songs. Sorry, and this is even before the EP. Now I'm remembering. We did with Matt. We did like a 2-song demo. There was like an emo song on there called Third Semester, and then a Fat Wreck punk song called Clean Break that ended up going on the EP, but Third Semester didn't. And because Chris was like, yeah, I think the songs are cool. He's like, but we need another guitar player. Matt wasn't able to do it because he was still in high school. Yeah, so we found a couple people to try it out, and then at that point, Chris he's going to Monmouth, and then we know so we like met some people at Monmouth who could fill the role, and then we started. We like hit the road with the EP, did like down the coast and back up during I think it was a spring break or a winter break, right after winter break. Yeah, we were sending out the EP, and then. James Cho gets in touch because we had met Militia Group and Rory and Chad, and they put out a comp that had Right Through Your Teeth off the EP, and then became friends with those guys. And then James was starting his own imprint, and so yeah, James decided to put us up for 3 albums, and that's kind of the start of us being on the road and like recording Tokyo Rose. by this point, Day 19 had, like taken the hiatus, and everybody was doing their own thing. Obi was up in Berkeley and started Westbound Train. It's funny, man. I like haven't thought about this stuff in so long.
That's why I love interviewing people. They're just like, holy shit. So around this time, I mean, the reason I started this podcast was to kind of talk about it was really just the Jersey scene up until the 90s, and it branched out until like late 90s. And then because that's when I thought that when I was living through that scene, when the bands and sounds were changing, I was just kind of like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Sure.
What were your thoughts when that was happening? Like, were you kind of paying attention to it? Like, I mean, obviously getting out of a ska band at that time without even thinking about it was like kind of a saving grace, unless you were like real big fish and you're like, we're gonna weather the storm for like the next 20 years, you know. So was there any point where you got out of that, you're like, oh, okay, thank God I'm not playing ska anymore, because that would be really working against me right now.
Yeah, it was interesting. I like really took a lot of cues from you guys and like Humble. I remember when, like Humble put out All That Way, right? Like on the first 7-inch, it had a ska part. Like that breakdown part was the ska part, and we're like, oh yeah, all right. Like this, we're all in this Jersey scene. Like we touch all these different kinds of music. And then when they re-released it on the Overanalyzing EP, it was like, oh, like okay, no, they're sticking with punk and sticking with rock. And then like our musical influences as well. Like me and Chris both, we were like, yeah, like we love ska, and like we'll always love ska. But I think in terms of the songs that we were writing, it was definitely leaning more towards rock and leaning more towards kind of like the inklings of emo. Clarity was always playing in the van. The Appleseed Cast, the first record, was always playing. We were just getting into more music that was more guitar driven and more I don't know, like angsty and emotionally, lyrically more emotional. Like ska tended to be a little bit more upbeat, and I think based on our experience, like we were like maybe we're not as upbeat as that music kind of lends itself to be.
I mean, it has like the one thing I thought of when I was like listening to everything, and I was like, there's no way there was an influence here. But I was like, I'm gonna ask this anyway. Were you listening to Cartel at all at the time?
Yeah, I mean, because they were on Militia Group, played a couple shows with them down in Atlanta as we were kind of rising, and they were rising, and they embodied that kind of pop punk with like a separate singer, and like having Newfound Glory come through Jersey and like seeing them at the Cove and numerous times playing the Firehouse too. It's just okay, like we want to be able to share our experience as well and like use yeah, like not have the pick it up in there.
I actually did go to a ska show. Catch 22 played here like a month ago, and I forgot. Like it was another ska band was playing with them, and I was like, I forgot how fun these shows are. They're like everyone's there to dance and just smile and play, and it's such a different vibe from a Jimmy Eat World show where you are happy to be, but the ska show is just like there's no reason to be upset at this show. It's just fucking fun. That's why I used to love it back in the day, and then I'm like, was I so against this music when it started to turn? So yeah, I asked the cartel question because your voices sound very similar. I was like, I wonder if you had any influence from his voice, but I was like, you guys were coming at the same time, so I don't know how that would have happened.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention it because there's a tune on the Promise record that as I was writing, I was like, who does this sound like, and why is it coming out this way? James was like, put on the Cartel. Was it called Chroma?
Chroma, yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, that sounds like his name Will, the singer
Yeah,
from
Will.
yeah. And I was just like, oh man, like I totally, he just like infected me with his catchiness and the great melodies. Yeah, and then like the guitars were just like ripping.
Yeah.
Which is why so many people love NFG, like because the guitars just rip. It's like post-hardcore, but like happy post-hardcore.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those like when I heard that the self-titled Newfound Glory, I'm like,
hmm
how do these guys pull these songs? They sound like every one of these songs is a fucking hit. Like when a band does that, you're just like, how did you do this? They're like, I don't know, it just came to me. You're like, fuck you, you
Yeah,
fucking
seriously.
dick.
Thanks a lot, Chad.
Yeah. So when you guys start playing, you got the EP out, and so how soon after that do you do the full length?
So the EP came out, I want to say like September 2000 or maybe early 2001.
Yeah, it says 2001 on Discogs.
Yeah, so 2001, and then like we start playing, spring breaks and like I think I missed like a whole semester of school just being out playing in the Midwest somewhere in like or Sioux Falls or something, and being exposed to so many bands out there, and like even going down to like Omaha and like all like the Saddle Creek stuff. Back to Militia Group, they had a band called Copeland, who we just absolutely adored.
God, I love Copeland.
Aaron and James and Russ, like they're the coolest guys. We played a bunch of shows with them down in Florida. I think they're from Florida, Georgia, and like so we played a bunch of like their hometown shows down there. They were the nicest guys and like the most brilliant songwriters and arrangers and musicians. Really, really admire them. And we're still kind of moving kind of away from ska and into punk, and like with some more, we were super influenced by the Strider from Long Island, and trying to like rectify all those influences. And we did a couple demos actually with Peter from the Strider. I don't even know what happened to them. I don't have them anywhere. So we started kind of writing in those styles. And then yeah, Portrait, like Chris Badami, he's always been in the scene. He's been around for so long, and he made so many great records that we love. Like it was, I think when we met Militia Group, they're like, okay, like we would love to do something with you guys, but you don't have like a budget. Like they didn't have a budget back then, so we went into the studio with Chris, and we just wrote what came. Like a bunch of like so that buddy Chaz that I mentioned earlier, who would go to shows with, he went away to college in Seattle, and then like a bunch of us had like long distance girlfriends or whatever. So like a lot of that album came from like writing actual letters to people, letters to close friends and girlfriends and whatnot, and family members. And then so we start writing and demoing those songs. Sideshow's like, okay, like we have a little budget, so who could you work with? And we're like, for me it was always down to Chris or John Naclario. Just so many great sounds from the scene from Nada. It's just like, and then like Big Blue Meanie in Jersey City / Union City. Like I guess when all the kind of drive-through bands were at Portrait, they're like, yeah, we should just go with Chris because he has the sound that we're going for.
Was that when he was in the garage still, or was he in the studio?
Yeah, it was still in the garage before he moved into the barn.
Damn.
Yeah, haven't been to the barn yet, but Chris is just the coolest.
Yeah, he was the first interview of the whole podcast.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I loved it. He's just like, yeah, man, I was like, holy shit, you're still the same guy. So when you guys so the record comes out, how did you feel like you were plugging into all the bands that were around you that were taking off?
Yeah, I think we were so fortunate to be able to plug in with the scene, but then also like the kind of growing, like the Orange County, New York scene, kind of upstate scene, the Long Island scene, as well, and like kind of branching out to that. And then we were like, I can't even believe that we had this opportunity because you grow up. Like I got my first summer job to save up money for the Warped Tour down in Asbury. But we got invited to do a small stage on Warped that summer that the record came out. So it was just like, we have a record. It's like, in its own jewel case. We didn't burn it and then like write with Sharpie the track. We did the small stage on Warped. So like we're driving 10 hours between some of the shows, and then we're setting up the merch tent, and then like dragging all the gear across, like with the three wheels that work and the one wheel that's about to fall off to the stage. And we also had to build the stage that year. I think it was called the East Coast International stage or the Kevin Says stage. I can't remember now.
Wait, you had to all the bands playing the stage had to build the stage?
Yeah, we all had to build the stage. It was cool. We met some like a lot of amazing bands that year, like from first to last. I think Hidden in Plainview, maybe it did a couple dates on that stage, if I'm not mistaken. But we met those guys. We had met those guys already. Yeah, it was just a fun experience. But it's just like, yeah, like we get to be on Warped. It was the only reason exactly like for existing in 95, 97. And then it's like getting to, meet all those bands out there from all over, from, California, from Florida, from Chicago. Yeah, man, it was such a blessing, to be able to have that opportunity.
When you guys were doing this, were you having a conversation as a group saying, all right, this things are starting to move in a direction. I want to say like businessify. I don't even know. I'm trying to say this. Like, how did you like you guys get together and say, all right, like we need to kind of lock this down because now we're on Warp Tour and we want to get to maybe this next label's our thing. We want to start playing this. Like, did you guys ever strategize like that, or did you say this is cool? We're just playing shows and someone's booking us and we go out on the road and then we record albums?
It didn't really, until maybe 2004, 2005, like click that someone else would kind of do that stuff for us. So Chris, through his Professor Plum ties and through just knowing so many musicians from over the years, would book shows, and we would go on. I can't, man, it kills me that I can't remember that website, but we would go on that website and like we would go on Makeout Club and Friendster, and then eventually to MySpace and just like find out where people were going to shows or what bands were playing the bigger shows in those cities. And we just contact them and say, hey, like we want to come to your area, and like we played together here or here, and we met on Warped or whatever. Chris was doing a lot of that as like kind of band manager and booking agent, like, and still being part of the band. He was the hustler for all of that business stuff. He was the guy.
So were you just focusing more personally on just the songs and just staying out of the business?
Yeah, kind of like writing, thinking of like set, and we did a lot of merch stuff, and we like try to just make it an experience that we all like would be proud of. I think I took us to more seriously than I should have.
What do you mean?
We were still, we're still a punk band, but like when it's your songs, and when it's kind of like your story that you're putting out there. Like I like definitely was precious about a lot of it, and Chris was like, yes, absolutely, but we also need to like make this so that it can be something that we do full time. He was really good about it. Like he had that in his mind, I think, a lot, like before any of us did.
Did you listen to all the songs that were coming out around that time and think and have any kind of pressure on you to match that sound? Or did you see, I could put it this way. Was there pressure when you're listening to the music around you to match what was happening? Or when I can remember growing up playing with Humble, it wasn't a pressure, it was like, oh man, like that's so cool. We have to beat that, but in like a friendly way. It drove us to write better songs. Like, how did you feel about that when you're writing new music?
Yeah, I think, man, going back now, like in my brain, and like having that first Midtown EP, eating that up, and like being like, oh, you can be a punk band, but like you can have these complex emotions and complex like parts, these intricate parts, and then getting exposed to people like that, like all over the country. You play shows with Motion City Soundtrack. It's like, oh, they have a keyboard. Do we need a keyboard? It's like, and then like, he's doing flips, or like playing down in Florida, and like, opening for like a very nascent Yellow Card. And it's like, they have a violin and he's doing backflips. Like, do we need to do that? But I think in terms of the sound, we kind of, tried to improve the quality in terms of recording, but then also I think I was growing as a songwriter, as a singer, being able to do different things with my voice. People always like who are your influences growing up? I was like, I was a huge Bon Jovi and a huge Michael Jackson fan. And I know it's maybe not so cool to say that, but Michael Jackson was a musical genius. And I think taking those influences and like loving soul music and bringing that through Day 19 and like ska, Chris being an amazing bass player, just gave us a sound that was in the vein, but also I think differed enough that it kind of had our own kind of sound.
Like when you're watching all that shit happen around you, like for me being out of the scene and I'm watching all this stuff, I was just like, dude, what the fuck is this like violin shit?
Right.
There was just, I felt there was just this dog and pony show, and it was like I feel like, so I guess my question is, as a band, did you look at all that stuff and think like, fuck, man, like we have to have the songs, but we need to have this spectacle at the same time, and but that's just not us. Was there a pressure to come up with something like that where you had to match the things going on around you just so people would pay attention to you?
Yeah, I think our musical influences kind of matured, but then also we were messing around with Head Automatica was kind of coming out with stuff, loving The Refused, but then loving International Noise Conspiracy too, hearing the kind of garage sound come out of that, and trying to just be true to ourselves. And honestly, like, I'm not the best guitar player, so like trying to be true to like what we could actually pull off musically. It's funny, man. Green Day put out a song a couple years ago, like "Father of All." It was like the first track off of one of their records after American Idiot, and it was like, what are they doing? Like, it was a cool, like, kind of garagey, rocky, kind of sassy. I felt like it wasn't Green Day, and I felt like there were a couple songs that we tried to do, especially on the Promise and Compromise album, that it was like, yeah, that was an experiment, and maybe that's not really who we are musically. But I don't know if it was like matching as much as it was like, let's try something different, because like I think the whole thing was an experiment. Coming from two ska kids, it was kind
I
of.
mean, I'll say like if you listen to all three albums, start with Reinventing a Lost Art, and then you go to New American Saint. Like the songs are there, the hooks are there, but I felt like by the time you guys get to the Promise and Compromise, the production jumps huge, and the songs just become their each one. Like I feel like the other records, you can separate the difference between the songs, but it's not this like I feel like there's not this giant leap. And not saying that in a negative way, but in the Promise and Compromise, I felt like you guys landed on what you needed to sound like. I don't know, just like just the production, the way the songs just kind of each they sound like individual. It's usually a band, they come out strong, and then the more records come out, they start to lose it. But I felt like you guys were just going up, and then that one was like that's where you were like, all right, here it is, and then within that year, you guys are done.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that's kind of how we went into it. We're like, okay, we kind of did kind of when I think of New American Saint, it's like we tried a bunch of different sounds, and then we were like heavily influenced by the producer Matt Goldman, because not only had he done like all the Copeland stuff, but he did Under Oath, Defining the Great Line, and we are like, we love the sounds, and like we want to achieve some of those sounds, but also that like we're neither of those bands. And then the influences that we had going into Reinventing, like we're not those bands either, because like we kind of created our own kind of mix of the different influences. And then by the time we're writing Promise, like we're like, let's strip away not the experimentation, but like let's just be honest and write more honest songs about like where we are and what we're seeing, but also to our playing. So, Tokyo Rose kind of had, for lack of a better term, like we had a kind of a revolving door of musicians come through, like amazing musicians, amazing players, amazing people. We would go on the road, and back then, like, it wasn't a social media following that kind of defined your success, right? You had to like go out and be on the road full time and like play 50 people shows in Omaha, in Cheyenne. That wasn't, some of the players that got to play on the records, who are amazing, just like weren't ready to kind of, for lack of a better term, like eat shit like 365, like eat the Wendy's dollar menu or like canned tuna fish in the back of the van. I think that kind of mentality, like, let's cut. We want to have amazing musicianship, but also we want to just like get to straight to the heart of like what makes us a band. And I think that's where Promise kind of really benefited. We're like, this is the sound that we've kind of been working on and honing and kind of trimming the excesses here and there to get a product that we're all like really happy with. And then having real producers, not like real producers, but like that vocal coach, especially for me, it was like, oh man, like I have so much work to do in terms of taking care of my instruments and taking care of my my body and my health. Fred Archambault, who was the engineer, he had just done Avenged Sevenfold, the record that blew them up, and he was like, "You guys have a rock sound, and you should really like magnify that." And I think just having that, having done the previous records with people who have like their sound, I think these guys were like, okay, like what's your sound, and then let's make your sound come out. Chris is amazing. I think he said this maybe on the podcast, like that our record was the first one he did on that new board, his new SSL board, and it was like, okay, we're still kind of discovering what our sound is, so let's go with the sounds that you have dialed in and that have made you known for who your sounds. And then same thing with Matt Goldman, like he cut his teeth with Copeland and Under Oath, so it's like let's utilize some of those sounds and experimentation with our kind of musical whimsy. Yeah, and then Promise was like, no, like you guys the producers were like, you guys tell us what your sound is, and then we'll just use our microphones, and capture it.
Yeah, I feel like they nailed it when they did that. Is that like a bummer when soon after that comes out, you guys call it quits?
It's a bummer, but I think I think we had come to the end of our side deal. I think Chris and I had been through so much together, and like having so many friends like be part of the band and then decide to step away for one reason or another, weighed a toll on us. And Chris also being the really business savvy, business minded person, he was putting in a lot of work. And I think, he became really good friends with Fred Mascherino, who's amazing, this amazingly gifted musician, incredible songwriter. And I think Chris, I would be putting words in his mouth, but, Fred was due. I think Fred was due his flowers, and I understand why Fred, wanted to do his thing. And I think Chris really understood that Fred was going somewhere, and he wanted to be a part of that. And it felt like Tokyo Rose was kind of coming to a point where we could go further. But then I think one thing or another happened where the record got leaked, and then the record company wasn't pleased, and I think we were all, and the record company included, were hoping it was going to be something that it ended up not being.
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean, is Spotify even around at this time?
No.
2010, 2011 or something?
Yeah, it was like Napster and LimeWire, and it got leaked so much so that when the actual album got put on iTunes, it was mislabeled, and it was like the tracks were all named wrong, and the artist was called Pigface. And I'm like, what is that? And we couldn't get to the bottom of it, and I think it was just like, okay, maybe that's the sign from the universe there.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a band called Pigface.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've never heard this.
Yeah, no, and then like quickly disappeared from iTunes after that, and I think I don't know exactly what happened with the digital platforms following that.
Well, it's on Spotify.
Yes, it is now.
Yeah, like all your stuff's on there except for the EP. So how does it finally end?
So Chris joins Color Fred, plays a couple of shows with them, and our guitar player Matt Fleischman, who is a PA guy, played in a bunch of bands, a band called Murder Texas, before he played in Tokyo Rose. They join Fred on the road. Fred takes the ball, he gets handed an amazing opportunity. He does like Angels and Airwaves, and I think there's like an MXPX tour, which was like my boyhood dream, and they run with it. And like, I think at that point we do Bayside, and it was a lot of fun, really cool to reconnect with those guys. But I think we were just at a point where, we needed to start making moves in our family life. Our drummer Jake at that time, he was living in California, so he had to go back to California. Our guitar player at the time, Brad, who was also in Days Like These, ended up moving down south. He's a realtor in like the Smoky Mountains now. Amazing dude. He's coming back for the Philly show to play with Days Like These. And then, I think I was just done. I like had to move back into my mom's basement. It was like, okay, like maybe it's time to pack it in. There was never any like bad blood or anything. I think it was just like we all, I think, rode the wave as far as we could. And when like the record got leaked, and Sideshow was like, I think we got to shelf this, or we got to just like kill it so that they don't lose any more money, basically. It felt like a good time to pack it in, but also I still had a couple songs on the back burner that like didn't make it on the previous two records. Yeah, I was just ready to kind of just live a normal life, I guess.
Did you feel like a little bit of a I always ask this to people when the band quits, like do you feel like a little bit of identity loss at all?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that was like, yeah, for close to 10 years, like that was what I was and what I did. I found different ways to kind of re-identify. I came to my faith, and family was everything. Like I said, like they let me move back into the basement, and like help me get back on my feet. And it was definitely one of those times where you're like, okay, like there is no safety net, but I'm just gonna just fall anyways and see what happens.
What was the thing you did that got you out of the, oh, okay, cool, I can do this now instead, and that's better?
Well, I think just having that, having family around me, and then yeah, coming to faith. Like I bounced back to Bloomfield, and Obi was back in Bloomfield at that same time. He had moved back to Bloomfield. He had just gotten married and was living in Bloomfield. So like I always had him to console, or to be consoled by. Yeah, we like started going to church together. Yeah, like kind of the beginning of the coming off the rock bottom.
That's good. It sounds like you got the family coming back in your car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so I'll start wrapping this. Before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to Johnny Smith and Kilbrand because I remember
Oh man.
I was friends with him at the time because he went to college. He was roommates or he lived down the hall from my buddy Tim Woosley, so we'd party with him all the time. And he's like, I'm in this band and I have this clothing company, and I was like, this is the coolest guy. Him and Robbie Tessera.
Yeah, exactly. So Robbie was the guitar player for Monmouth, and Johnny joined us on our first tour with Reinventing. He joined us on our first real tour, and then was the drummer on Reinventing. We played a lot of shows together, saw the whole continental U.S. together, and he's a great, great dude. And when Kilbrand became a thing, I was like, you have an opportunity here to do something that none of us has any experience or idea what could happen, and he's made a life out of it. So like props to him for, and we wish him all the best. Still, talk to him every now and then, like on the socials, and keeping up with him and his crazy little kid. It's cool. It's cool, man. And Wooz is amazing. Like Tim has been like the coolest guy the whole time. He's a great dude to know, and a great dude who like supports crazy musicians who just want to see what happens. And he's just always been a really good dude.
Yeah, we have this text chain, like all the buddies from Jefferson. There's like six of us, and we all just like banter all the time. Tim, like, pretty much has been leading the charge lately with just some random stories. All right, so just to close it up, last two questions before I ask the last one. What would you like to plug? It could be about you, it could be about a friend or a cause, it could be about all of them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we have these this weekend, Black Friday weekend, the 29th at November 29th at Crossroads. It's not just the Tokyo Rose reunion show, it's a Day 19 reunion show. Super excited about seeing those guys again, and playing those songs. Probably won't dance as much. I don't know if I have it in my back. My lower back won't agree with me anymore. And then we've got the show down in Philly at Kung Fu Necktie with DeSoto Jones and Days Like These. Yeah, we'll see what happens from here. Chris is playing in a band called Sleep Cycles. They're phenomenal. They're really kind of taking over the Philly scene. Matt also has played in some bands in that area. Murder Texas is his band that's kind of doing reunion shows as well. Sean, who played with Tokyo Rose in 2005 2006, he's a musician. He's been tracking. He played in Action Reaction with Jason Gleason and some of the guys, and Chrissy from Element 101, amazing Jersey band, right, that we all know and love. And then played in Old Wives with them as well. So yeah, like keep an eye out for all those bands. Yeah, like thank you, Mike, for doing this podcast, for honoring the scene, because it was so formational to me, and like all the guys in Day 19, all the guys in every band that we used to just go see and hang out, and just like cut our teeth and like learn how to be good humans to each other, and to the people that were so kind. I remember like Punk Rock Mom, and like all the kids that would come, and their parents who were embarrassing to them, but were like this coolest people who would let you sleep on their floor and like pick you up and take you to shows. Like, thank you to all, that's somebody has to pay tribute to this amazing scene. It's like it's such an ecosystem of people who are just so good to each other, and like just want to see, each other succeed. It's yeah, thank you, man. This is like even like the Facebook group, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
NJPP, like just good people, and I pray that everybody's doing well, and yeah, looks fondly back on this.
Yeah, dude. No, that's awesome, man. Appreciate it. Actually, to that point, just the last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
I mean, look, like we don't leave anybody behind. I was just thinking about this the other day. It's like if you can't do it, like put your hand out for the next person who can do it. And I think there's no harm in being good. There's no harm in being good to somebody, and I think that's what the whole scene showed us. Oh man, and this is kind of another side note, like because Nina and Ricky, like I bumped into them a few years ago because they were part of this refugee like resettlement program down in Central Jersey, but they're like kind of an offshoot of it, or kind of a separate organization now called Welcome Home in Jersey City. Really helps with refugees getting resettled in Jersey City, and like Ricky and Nina have been the most hospitable people in the scene for so long, since the very beginning. And um, yeah, there has to be a bomb shelter documentary down the line too.